just outside the town with my 4 best friends. We wanted to do a special sort of reunion, something more interesting than just getting drunk in the city, for example. I had also heard that the park had almost doubled in size since I had last visited, and I was curious about all its new features. As it turns out, my experience there was so traumatic, I never stepped into another water park again. We went to meet in the early morning, as the summer sun can be really tough after midday. But one of my friends, Addie, was supposed to pick us up with her SUV, and she called me at 10 a.m. to tell me she'd just woken up. I said fine, we were just going to be 3 hours later than intended, but there wasn't anything any of us could do. Addie was the only one with a car big enough for the 5 of us, plus all our accessories. By the time we got to the water park, it was loaded. Hundreds of teens were screaming and splashing each other, and the sun was burning our faces. So we decided we'd get a drink and wait for the sun to go down a little bit before we got on the water slides. We went to the bar, got some colorful and accessorized drinks, and sat on lounge chairs under the umbrellas. The park was really busy, so we couldn't find 5 lounge chairs next to each other. I sat next to Gerard, my oldest friend, and the other 3 went to find chairs elsewhere. Gerard and I chatted for a bit. Then I closed my eyes for a minute and enjoyed the music and the people laughing in the background. When I opened my eyes, I turned towards Gerard to ask him something, but he wasn't there. Started looking for him. He wasn't on any of the lounge chairs, and he wasn't at the bar either. After all, we had just gotten a drink minutes before. I got a bit worried, so I took my towel and my bag, and I went inside the water slide area in the center of the park. Knowing I might embarrass myself, I asked a group of teens if they'd seen a red-haired guy in purple trunks. They did have a little laugh, but they pointed me in the direction of a yellow spiral water slide, and I was relieved to see Gerard there with my other friends. I was also a bit annoyed that he had left without telling me. "Why did you leave like that?" I asked Gerard. "I thought you were asleep and the girls texted me to come to the slides as they couldn't find any chairs," he said. And I thought that was legit. The sun was still right above us, but since we couldn't find anywhere to sit down together, we figured we might as well enjoy the water slides. We tried the easier slides first, even though those were big and the water ran so fast that they were scary enough. And because it was busy, people weren't really respecting personal space, and sometimes you'd brush past someone else, or a loud kid would bump into you with his floating ring. When we got annoyed with all the kids on those slides, we went to a more dangerous one, which only allowed people over 16 years old on. We climbed the long metal staircase to the top of the slide, and then we noticed there was no one there. Not even a security guard, or one of those staff members that explains the rules of the slide before you go on. I thought this was a bit odd, and I told my friends I didn't really feel like going on the slide. "What if there's a fault with it?" I asked, but Addie was confident there couldn't be. If there was, they would have put up a sign, right? Then Gerard hopped on the slide and said, "I'm just glad there's no one pushing me here. Here we go." And he went down the slide with a joyful squeak. My other friends, Pam and Maddie, figured if Gerard is okay, they'd just go after him down the slide. It was a huge tubular slide with lights inside and a funnel at the end, where you'd spin until you got spat out into a shallow pool at the end. We couldn't see Gerard until the end as the slide was very tall, but everything seemed all right, and Addie decided to go next. She hopped onto the slide and told us she'd meet us at the bottom. Maddie was just getting ready when we heard a horrible shriek come from Addie. I'd never heard her scream like that. She was a pretty tough girl, so I felt a big knot in my stomach when I heard her. Something bad had happened. We rushed down the metal staircase and ran to the pool. Addie had a cloud of blood around her in the pool, and Gerard was shouting for someone to come help. Apparently the slide did have a fault, a big one. One of the metal fragments in the funnel had detached from the others, and a sharp, rusty corner was lifted into the air right before the exit into the pool. Addie caught her arm on the corner and cut herself from her shoulder to her wrist. It was such a deep cut that blood kept pouring at a very fast pace, and Addie was barely even conscious anymore. Before long, the water park staff came and took Addie out. Gerard followed quickly behind them. The girls and I were a few meters behind, and when I tried to run towards Gerard, I slipped and fell on my chest. Of course, the floor was wet. Gerard turned and saw me flat on the floor and shouted at us, "Stay a while longer, I'll take Addie to the hospital. You girls have fun and I'll be back with her car to pick you up later." I wanted to be with Addie at this horrible time, but they were already ahead of us and I didn't want to slow them down. By the time we got all of our stuff together and got to the car, Addie could have lost a lot of blood. So Pam, Maddie, and I gathered our towels and bags and sat down for a bit to process what had happened. Many people had seen the scene and were put off by all the blood. Some families with kids left, some looked at us weirdly, as if judging us for what happened. I did point out that the slide could have been faulty, so I didn't feel exactly guilty. I felt bad though, and I wasn't really in the mood for more water slides. But Maddie felt differently. She said we planned this months ahead and that we were there for a few more hours anyways until Gerard could pick us back up with Addie's car. So she suggested that we have a snack and get back on the slides. I thought that was a pretty rational plan, so that's exactly what we did. Unfortunately, by the time we finished our snack and returned to the slide zone, new waves of people had come in and it was as busy as when we first got there. We pushed our way through excited groups to get to the fun water slide area, but it was all a bit much for me. So I left and went to the general swimming pool. Pam saw this and followed me. She asked if I was okay, and I said I just felt like I couldn't breathe in there with all those people. As we were in the pool chatting, Maddie came too and asked us to get out and go to the slides. "Isn't that what we came here for?" she asked. "I guess so, but after what happened to Addie, I don't know if I want to be on the slides again," I replied. "All the more reason to do it," Maddie said. She said we had to do at least one good ride to forget about Addie's accident and create some good memories from the day too. Again, I thought her argument was very rational, so I got out of the pool and followed her to a huge slide in the middle of the area. It was the biggest slide of all, a giant network of narrow, wavy tubes going all around the water slide zone. I have to admit, I was pretty excited. As we were climbing the long set of stairs to the top, we heard an announcement on the park speakers. It was 15 minutes to closing time. The girls and I agreed that we would finish that ride and head to the exit and wait for Gerard there. The stairs felt endless. I got to the top exhausted and ready to get it over with. I hopped into the slide and let go of the edges. Just as I was starting to go down, I saw a huge teenage boy hop right behind me, much sooner than he was allowed. The guard shouted at him to wait, but he'd already let go of the slide and was sliding very fast towards me. I yelled at him to slow down and hoped for the best. The slide was very fast and I felt like I was losing control of my grip. I couldn't use my arms to slow down, as I would just get hurt at that speed. As I was approaching a sharp turn, the boy behind me smashed into me with all of his weight and sent me flying from the slide. I had no idea whether Pam or Maddie saw me. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. I flew into the air, hit a metal structure with my shoulder, and fell down. I passed out. When I woke up, I had no idea how long I'd been out for. It was dark and quiet. I lifted my head and a sharp pain went through my whole body. I had to find out how injured I was. I tried to stand up, but I felt an even more intense pain in my leg. I couldn't see much, so I touched it and realized I had broken my ankle. As soon as I became aware of this, the pain got even worse. It was unbearable, and I was all alone in the water park in the middle of the night. I began wondering what happened to Pam and Maddie. How did they leave without me? It was near closing time when we last saw each other, and they were probably escorted out even if they didn't want to leave, but couldn't they talk to someone about me? Why didn't the water park staff look for me? My head was filled with these thoughts, and I started feeling abandoned and betrayed by my friends. It was a terrible feeling, and I started feeling guilty for leaving Addie with Gerard and staying behind. I felt like maybe I deserved this outcome. I looked around me to see if I recognized anything familiar. It was dark, but I was hoping my eyes would get used to it. However, all I could see was a complicated metal structure, parts of slides from what I could make out. I was definitely not on the floor, but jammed somewhere between the top and bottom of the huge slide. I tried to feel the ground around me to see if I could find anything to grab and push myself up on one leg. There was nothing. I began to scream. I shouted, "Help!" I asked if anyone was out there, and I started crying when I felt like no one was going to come. I had no idea what time it was. I had no idea where my friends were, and I was in awful pain, with no hope of jumping off wherever I was. I laid there where I was. I couldn't scream anymore, and I didn't feel like there was anything I could do but wait for the water park to open again and hope that I didn't have a concussion. I have no idea how many minutes or hours passed while I was in this half-conscious state. I was trying to go to sleep till morning, but I couldn't as the pain kept me awake. It was the worst night of my life. Suddenly, I heard a noise. Maybe steps, I thought, but it was too far to tell. Then I heard them. Pam and Maddie were calling my name, and I was filled with hope. I called their names too and saw a flashlight coming from one of their phones. "Oh my God, you're okay!" Pam shouted. And now I realized how high up I was. There was some 15 feet below me on the ground. I was on a metal platform with holes in it, and I could see my friends through it. "I've broken my ankle, I can't come down on my own," I told them. It wasn't over yet. In fact, this was when fear completely overtook my body. I felt frozen, like I couldn't move at all. I felt that everything I could do would result in me falling to my death. There was no way I could climb down that structure in complete darkness with a broken leg. But my friends weren't giving up. Pam lit the way, and Maddie climbed on the frame, all the way up to me. I slowly climbed on her shoulders, and she began to descend. For a second, it felt like we would fall. Maddie's ankle slipped off the structure, and I thought we were falling backwards, but she quickly gripped the bars with her hand, and we made it safely down to the ground, where we all hugged. Now that I was somewhat safe, my head began clearing, and I had a lot of questions. "How come you're still here?" Pam said, "We realized you never made it off the slide, so we hid inside the park until closing to come find you. I was glad to hear they didn't abandon me as I once thought." "What about Gerard? How come he didn't come pick us up?" "He did," Maddie laughed nervously, "but he couldn't get through to us. Both of us had lost our phones while we were desperate to find you. We ended up finding them at lost property less than an hour back." And then I remembered, oh, yeah, what time is it? It was 4 a.m., close to sunrise. I must have been out for a long time. I felt tired and sad about how the day had turned out. The girls hadn't even called Gerard yet, and we didn't know how Addie was either. The pain in my leg was unbearable, so I asked the girls to put me down right there and call 911. I didn't want to move one more muscle today. When we finally got to the hospital, Gerard was already there tending to Addie. She had to have her arms sewn shut, so she was still out from the anesthetics. Gerard was very happy to see me in one piece. He was worried sick about the three of us disappearing like that. He even told Pam and Maddie off for not calling 911 sooner. So much for our fun reunion. Needless to say, when our families found out about our water park adventure, they were beyond outraged. Addie's parents sued the park for having a faulty slide, and our story became so popular on social media that it led to the park to adopt much stricter rules when it comes to personal space on the slide. I suppose the silver lining helped many people, but not me. I couldn't visit water parks ever again. Well, I hope your water park memories are happier ones. I also hope you're not completely traumatized by this story and that you'll still be up for a water park ride in the future.